Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Orthodox Venture with Boyan. I'm Boyan and I really want to discuss something that people really like to say online and they probably shouldn't, and that is the famous "you will apostasize" or some other variants. You will leave the church, you will become a heretic and so on and so forth. There are even some worse variants. You're better off being a Catholic, a Protestant, Muslim, all of these sorts of things. Why is this bad? There are only technically two penalties that canon law prescribes for difficult infringements, and that is removal from the priestly state, that is defrocking, and the other one is being excommunicated, that is not being allowed to partake of the Holy Eucharist. And this second penalty is far worse, because while defrocking is horrible, being denied communion is practically tantamount to death penalty in the church. That does not mean that the person is ultimately cannot be saved, but simultaneously the church on a whole does not have very high prospects of it. The canons, as always, are applied by bishops or technically by priests under the bishop's direct prerogative. It is not for us to divine what will happen of someone. The additional reason why this is bad is that sometimes, and we should really search our hearts for this, do we sometimes want for this to happen? We're all trained to say, no, I would have never wanted for this to happen. But let us think, would we sort of rejoice if the worst person in the church we know, whether it's me or somebody else, were to apostatize, become a Catholic, a Protestant, a Mormon, a Muslim, a Jew in the religious sense, or an atheist? Would we be that happy about it, in the sense of, yeah, I knew he was or she was going in that way. Yeah, he or she gave up those wives. Yeah, now it all makes sense. Wasn't I right all along? Is there an element of that, or our heart would bleed upon learning this information? I think it was Chesterton, actually I'm 100% certain it's Chesterton, that there is this false, horrible mentality that, for example, imagine that you found out that your enemies are practicing cannibals, and a week later you find out that rumor was in fact a complete and utter falsehood. Would you be glad that they're not as bad, or would you be sad they're not as bad? And that is why this "you will apostatize" mentality is dangerous. Sometimes there is this prideful veil over it. I'm only protecting the church. I'm only taking care of the church's best interest. That's not your job. That's the job of the priest, but primarily the job of the bishops. As St. Paisios says, look at this dome. You will see Christ the Almighty on it. Do you see that little crack in the edge of the dome? Christ is holding the church, not you. Christ is sustaining the dome. Sometimes we like to demonize others, but present this as this crusade for truth, for holiness, for protecting the church from whatever. And there are ways to do it. There are really ways to do it. But very often, again, ask yourself, as I ask myself often, and I find myself guilty of it, am I really such a valiant crusader for truth? Or would they really just like this person to disappear in a horrible way? I mean apostasy, because then they wouldn't be able to damage the church as much. Doesn't matter if Christ died for them, or that Christ's heart bleeds for them, I don't care about that. I'm just glad that the church is safe, finally, from this horrible, horrible person. Yeah, so yeah, we should be on guard against that mentality. If you honestly feel that somebody is going strong against what the church says, simply nail it with talk with your priest about this, because if that person has even a little speck of humility and is not literally lying to the church community they belong to, assuming there is a church community they belong to, they will double check what they're saying, and they will, realign themselves with that, hopefully. But then again, it's a thing of humility. And whenever we rebuke someone, we need humility on our part, but we also need humility if we're being rebuked. So yeah, fun times.